Hello and welcome to the FatBoss Guide to Grand Empress Shek'zeer, 25-man normal, in the Heart of Fear.
Yes, another boss with a very annoying name, but it's still quite a good boss. It's a nice way of ending the instance, I'd say. It's got some quite clever mechanics. I like phase 2 the most, but we'll explain it. It is a 3-phase fight, but before we go into that, you want to bring 2 tanks, 5 to 6 healers, and any DPS, really. It's quite a standard setup that you want to bring, really.
Now to start off, we're going to talk about phase 1, and in phase 1 there's 4 mechanics that you need to be aware of. Now the boss will randomly apply debuffs to members of the raid called Cry of Terror, and this will make you do AoE ticking damage on the raid, and we'll talk about how to cover this in a moment.
Now the second ability is Eyes of the Empress, and this is just a tank debuff. If it gets to 5, you become mind controlled and it transforms you and you do blah blah blah. It's bad. Don't get to 5. If you get to 5, you're shit, so just taunt on 4.
Another ability that the boss has is Dead Screech, and this will hit 5 random players, dealing about 80k damage. And there's not really anything you can do about this, but it is splash damage. You need to spread out by 5 yards.
Yes. Now the main mechanic in this encounter, for phase 1 anyway, is Dissonance Field. Now 2 shields spawn on the ground, and if you're inside them, they absorb any magic cast inside, and this includes both heals and damage. They just will not exit or enter the shield. Now these shields slowly run out of energy, and once they hit 0, they will explode, dealing 220k damage to the raid, and even more if you are inside these shields. However, as 2 of them spawn, if they both detonate at once, you're going to be one-shot. The whole raid's
which is really bad.
Yeah.
So what you need to do in phase 1 is try and make it so these shields explode at different intervals, and you do this by standing inside them. If you do any heals or any damage when you're inside them, it will actually make the energy go down quicker. So you need to try and make it so the shields explode at different times.
Now a very clever thing you can do is with the Cry of Terror, which we didn't explain earlier. So what you need to do with the Cry of Terror is that you need to run into these shields, as this will make it so none of the damage exits the shield because it's all being absorbed by the shield. It also makes the shield go down faster. However, the damage will still be doing damage to you. So what you need to do is make sure that you leave the shield in order to be healed up if you are low, and make sure of course you leave the shield A, once your debuff has run out, or B, if it's just about to explode, because otherwise you are going to get hit really hard inside. Now if there's an ample amount of time after your Cry of Terror is gone and someone else gets a Cry of Terror, you can just go run into that same shield and just make it explode again. It just makes it so there's less damage out on the raid. So basically for the dissonance fields, just make sure that they explode at different times and make sure everyone is topped up before they do explode, because they are still doing quite a bit of damage.
Now throughout this entire phase, apart from those 4 mechanics, the boss's energy will slowly deplete, and once it does reach 0 energy, that's when the second phase will start. The time it takes for all the energy to go down is roughly 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So in phase 2, Shek'zeer will leave the encounter completely and start getting her energy back, which also takes about 2.5 minutes. So phase 1 and 2 are both on the same amount of time. It's on time basis, not percent or anything like that.
Now this phase will end when she has all that energy back, and she will go straight back into phase 1. It'll go phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, phase 2, phase 1, until you hit the criteria for phase 3, which we'll talk about when we get to it.
Now while she does sort of bugger off in this phase, you'll get hit with a load of different ads. There's Reavers and there's Windblades, and they spawn on each side of the room. There's 1 Reaver per pack, and there's 3 Windblades per pack.
Now we're going to cover each ad by themselves, and first we're going to talk about the Reavers, which is mainly what your tanks need to worry about. Now these have 3 mechanics. The first one is Poison Bomb. Now this basically makes him throw out poison bombs on random players, dealing about 50k damage and then 10k ticking damage every 2 seconds. You can't do anything about this. It's just giving the healers something a bit extra to do, to be honest, because there isn't otherwise that much to do. So there you go.
There's another ability called Toxic Slime that the Reavers do, and this is like a shockwave. It doesn't stun though, and it does about 90k damage to anyone caught on it. So never stand in front of them if you're a DPS or a healer, and obviously, you know, tanks. You just got to face them away from the raid and make sure that no one gets caught by this.
Now an interesting thing the Reavers do is also debuff your tank with Poison Drenched Armor. Now this is a debuff applied to you, and when you run near a friendly player, you will also give them a debuff. However, this debuff is more like a buff. It makes it so you have a chance on your attacks to do 50k extra damage to anything, and this only applies to friendly players. So as a tank, when either you're not tanking or you can get your DPS to run up to you, you just want to kind of cover as many DPS as you can in order to just get this extra damage out, because why the hell wouldn't you want a damage increase? So if you're not tanking, go paint everyone up, and as DPS, if you can run over to your tank safely to get this debuff, then do it. Just be careful of the Toxic Slime, because you might be hit by that.
Now the Windblades, they do a fixate, and this lasts 30 seconds, so if you do get this, just run away or tank them. They don't do that much damage. You don't really need to worry about that particular ability too much. They've also got a buff that they'll gain called Dispatch. This will make them do 70k damage to random players now and then. This is dispellable, so just make sure you keep the dispels up on that. They also got an ability called Sonic Blade, which is an empowered melee attack that interrupts spellcasting, and there's nothing you can do about this, unfortunately. So healers, you need to be very aware of this, so you need to make sure that these targets that are getting hit by this get additional healing.
Yeah. Now the main ability that the Wind Blades do is Sticky Resin. Now they'll just throw a little orange blob on the floor. However, if you run through it, you'll gain a debuff that will slow you by 30% and do 25k damage per second. However, if two players meet with the debuff, so they both have the debuff, they will create a bubbling resin patch on the floor. If you run into this with the debuff, it will remove the debuff you have and add it to the pile. Once 4 stacks have been applied to the pile, so 6 total debuffs to make a full pile, it will create an amber trap. Now if you run a mob over this trap, it will stun them and deal 5% of their HP every 2 seconds. Now you want to have your tanks take the Reavers over these. Now you want to make 2 traps, of course, for 1 for each mob, and if there is any other resin, feel free to make more traps for the next phase 2 if you do have another phase 2. Now make sure you do not take a Wind Blade over this, as it is a complete waste. So Wind Blades have like fuck all health in comparison to the Reavers, and this is the only way that you can kill these Reavers in time for when Shek'zeer comes back, which she will, and you do not want to have these Reavers up when Shek'zeer is back. So it is essential that you have these amber traps for this phase, because otherwise you will not be able to have enough DPS to kill these ads. This is the only way you can do it. Now the Wind Blades will try and kill the trap once it has been activated, so they'll all stack up and try and just hit it down. So what you need to do is AoE them as they do this. Now they may actually break the trap, but the mob has probably been in there long enough to come out with probably about 10% HP or something like that. So you don't need to take him into a new trap or anything. You can just continue killing him, because you just need to finish him off. Now make sure you do not run into another player if you have sticky resin once 2 bubbling resin patches have been formed, as you'll just have like 50 little resin patches but no full amber trap.
So you'll just be wasting the debuff stacks completely.
Exactly.
So you need to make sure that you don't do that. Now one thing we didn't mention about these ads, as well as having all those abilities, they also have a shared ability that when they're within 8 yards of each other, they give each other a 30% damage increase. So if there's 4 ads next to each other, they all have 120% damage increase.
Yeah.
It is important that if you do get a fixate from a Wind Blade, for example, that you do move away. You'll take a lot less damage from his melee hits if you just run away.
And tanks, when you are picking up those 4 ads at the side, of course they're all going to be doing 100%, 120% extra damage, so just make sure you pop a defensive cooldown and things like that, and just let healers just be aware that these tanks are going to be taking a really high amount of damage. So basically in phase 2, it's all about these ads. Shek'zeer isn't here. You just got to make sure that you combine the sticky resin debuff to make one of the patches, and then just add 3 more to those patches to make a trap. Kite the Reavers over the top of it, and yeah, that's practically it. That's all you have to do. Just make sure the ads are spread out, and just dispel the Wind Blades as well when you can. And there's nothing really else to this phase. And of course, just make sure that these ads are dead by the time that Shek'zeer comes back.
So you'll continue to have phase 1 and phase 2 every 2.5 minutes until you reach the 30% mark. And this is when phase 3 will start.
Now with the transition into phase 3, you just got to try and make it so there are no shields up. This is really, really, really bad for you if you have these dissonance fields, because they're otherwise they're going to explode during phase 3, and phase 3 there's already a lot of AoE damage going on. Also, you just want to make sure you have absolutely no ads. So you want to go into this as cleanly as you possibly can.
Now she more or less drops all of her abilities, apart from one. She'll still keep the tank debuff that you need to taunt on 4 stacks, otherwise you get mind controlled and fuck everyone. So make sure you still taunt on 4 stacks. But she does gain a load of her new abilities.
She gains Shard Energy, and this does 60k damage to 5 players. Unavoidable, can't do anything about it. Just, yeah, that's that.
Heal it up.
She also does Amassing Darkness. Now, this kind of works a bit like Prayer of Mending in a way. Basically, she'll do 60k damage to 1 random target. Then she'll do 60k damage to that same target, and then 1 other player. Then, after another 2 seconds, that target, that other player, and then that other player, and this will keep getting more and more and more until your whole raid is hit, and then all the damage will stop. This hits quite hard, and it is ticking every 2 seconds, so it's kind of a bit like a pseudo enrage sort of thing, a soft enrage. It starts getting to a point where you can't really AoE this heal up, so it's kind of like you got to rush this phase quite quickly.
Another one of her extra abilities is Visions of Demise. This is a debuff that's placed on 5 random players again, and after 4 seconds you will then do 35k damage-ish to all players within 8 yards every 1 second for 20 seconds, as well as being feared for the duration of this debuff. So you get the 4 seconds of like nothing, and then suddenly you do damage to all players around you, and then you get feared for a very, very long time. So the best way to deal with this is that when you do get this debuff, you run out as a group, everyone who has this debuff, and as soon as the 4-second debuff expires and you get the 20-second fear, you want to mass dispel right on top of all those players, so the fear gets instantly removed.
Yeah.
And if you do watch the time of the debuff, you can precast the mass dispel and get it instantly, so they're barely feared at all.
Now the boss will also do something called Consuming Terror. She will face a random player and cast a huge shockwave. If you're hit by this, you will take 200k and also feared for 8 seconds. So guess what, guys? You don't get hit by it.
Yeah,
you're supposed to run.
Just avoid it.
Just run through the boss, because in this phase you'll be stacked up all behind the boss. Just run through it in any way that you can. Just avoid it. It's very, very simple.
And the last ability that she has is Calamity. It has 50% of your current health, and it will tick frequently, so you need to keep everyone as high as you possibly can, as there is a lot of damage going out, and combined with other abilities you can get one hit, so you need to make sure that it's just a lot of fucking healing this last phase. It's got very much a new Barak feel from TOGC, if people can remember back that far. However, obviously the boss isn't getting healed by the amount of health that you have, so you're not being punished for people being overhealed, so you are supposed to go absolutely nuts and heal your fucking shit as much as you possibly can.
So for this phase, when you do get into this phase, you want to pull the boss down the stairs slightly, as there is a bunch of black shit on the floor. I don't even know what that is, just don't stand in it, it's bad. It hurts.
Just ticking shit.
So just bring it down the stairs, that way you can move around properly for when she does do the Consuming Terror, so you can move out of them nice and easily. So you just want to be stacked up behind the boss with the tanks in front of the boss, and Bloodlust, and just nuke the shit out of her. So that's actually it, really. Just make sure that you are running out for these dispels, and making sure you're mass dispelling. Try and precast it, so just, be good. And then healers, you just want to be healing as much as possible. You might want to make a rotation of your AoE heals, like your big cooldowns like Tranquility and things like that, in order to make it so this raid can be topped up for as much as possible, especially with the Amassing Darkness and Calamity going on at the same time. If anyone's below 60k health at any point, then you are in serious risk of them being killed instantly, because everything does roughly around 60k damage in this phase. So just make sure that everyone's healed up and that you move out for this, and then you move out of the other things, and then you'll kill the boss, really.
Yeah. So thanks for watching, guys. If this guide did help you out, then please make sure you drop us a like. It does help us out quite a lot, and make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe.
And if you'd like to see any of our other 25-man normal guides here on FatBoss, then make sure you click up on the annotations you see on your screen now, and that will take you right over to them.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.